Just as a disclaimer, we want you to know that some of the movies that we will be reviewing were shot in a different time and era where people of race and sex were not treated equally. We understand this and hope you do too. The movies or anything that happened on the sets are not the views of this podcast or what this show is intended to be all about.
Exactly. And we want to give due diligence in presenting the movie and not the views of the cast or directors or anyone involved. But we also feel it's necessary to let the audience know some of the background information to get a feel for what was happening at the time of shooting the film. Again, we hope you understand that we do not agree with everything that went on, and we just want to give out the information. And with that being said, hope you enjoy the show.
TriStar Pictures announces the collaboration of three extraordinary talents. Jim Henson, creator of The Muppets and Dark Crystal.
Oh! Where you go with a head like that?
George Lucas, creator of the Star Wars saga. And one of the most innovative forces in modern entertainment, David Bowie. Together, they will take you into a dazzling world of fantasy and adventure.
There's nothing to be afraid of.
A world where anything seems possible, and nothing is what it seems.
Everything I've done for you. I move the stars for no one. Run so long, run so far.
The world of Labyrinth.
All right, guys, welcome back to the Tragedy of Cinema podcast. This is episode 48. We will be discussing Labyrinth. I'm your host, Jimbo, and so shockingly, for 2 weeks in a row...
Oh, man, the co-host, Terrence.
Terrence is back in the house. So, Terrence, I'm going to throw you a little bit of a question here before we get started. You're totally unprepared for this, like normal. So,
as usual.
I want to, Terrence, give me your favorite puppet and Muppet of all time.
So puppet just in general of like...
just any puppet and the Muppet.
I really enjoy the sort of design and styling.
You only get one, though.
Yes, that's the main character of Dark Crystal.
And his name was?
I don't remember. It's been a long time.
He is in rare form today, fellas. He's ready to go.
Now I would say my favorite
Jen?
Muppet.
Is you talking about Jen?
Jen, yeah.
Okay.
My favorite Muppet. Man, there's so many. They're all so endearing. Man, I'll just go with classic Kermit, man.
Kermit? All right. Well, I'm going to say my favorite puppet is probably Yoda. And probably close second to that is Jabba the Hutt, because there was like 6 puppeteers in that guy.
That's true, yeah.
And my favorite Muppet, you got to go with Kermit. Even though that little shrimp they have now, I can't think of his name. He's hilarious, or lobster, whatever he is. He's funny. So, Terrence, before we dive into this movie that is Labyrinth, let's go ahead and throw out some information. Next week, we will be covering Ghostbusters, since it's close to Halloween. Figure we throw that out there. And then we will be having a Halloween special episode that on Halloween night, where we'll be doing the original Night of the Living Dead. Now, we are going to be on Hillbilly Horror Stories, and we will be doing a little shortened version of the Night of the Living Dead, which we've already recorded and sent off to Jerry at Hillbilly Horror Stories. So we will be on their special Halloween episode once again this year, which we are greatly thankful for. So thanks, Jerry and Tracy, for making that happen again. Also, there is a Twilight Zone contest going on. I think it's the last 4 episodes we did so far. We give out a secret word, and I already have, and you just emailed that back to me, the secret word for each episode at thetragedyofcinema@gmail.com for your chance to win the Tragedy of Cinema coffee mug that I do have in my possession now. It came in the mail. Also, if you want to follow us on the Facebook group, it's the Tragedy of Cinema podcast group. So we have a lot of fun on there too. And by the way, Die Hard's not a Christmas movie. I had to throw that out there real quick. So Terrence, let's go ahead.
Feathers before we even get started.
Go ahead, take it away, Terrence.
All right, so we have Labyrinth, release date June 27th, 1986. This movie had a budget of $25 million. If you account for inflation, that's $59.3 million today. U.S. box office, it only made $12.9 million. That's $30.6 million today. So we wanted to try something a little different, where we kind of bring up some of the other movies that it was going against in the same year and also like the same month. So we're looking at some of the same movies that came out the same month as Labyrinth. We got some pretty big movies. We got Karate Kid 2. Yeah, we got Ferris Bueller's Day Off. And we have Raw Deal. And then in the same year, we looked at, what the top box office movie was that year. It was Top Gun, making $176.7 million compared to the $12.9 million this movie made.
Right, and also to put in perspective, the box office for The Dark Crystal, it was
2 years before.
Yeah, it was $41.4 million.
Yep.
So just wanted to throw that out there too.
And and to give you a gap of how far it was from the top 10, and at number 10 we had Ferris Bueller's Day Off making $70.1 million. Once again, this only making $12.9 million. So
and we looked it up, and this movie fell all the way down. From the total box office movies for the year, it's all the way down to number 68.
Yeah, of like 120 something.
Yeah, mine was 201. I was looking at.
Oh, was
so
it
yeah, it was.
Yeah.
I mean, but this was a great year for movies to come out. I mean,
a lot
of good stuff. Crocodile Dundee. A lot of this stuff came out that year. So it's not shocking that this did so poorly when you have other choices. So.
Yeah. I also could see sort of, puppeteered movies being an acquired taste for some people, especially at the time, and even now, So moving on, this was directed by Jim Henson, who, if you don't know, Sesame Street, Muppets, they did all the Muppet movies and stuff. They also did Fraggle Rock, Dark Crystal. He did The Witches, which they just remade. There's and it's all CGI now, but it's on. They just put up the movie on HBO, the remake. And then you have of course I mentioned Sesame Street. Writing credits goes to the story by Dennis Lee and Jim Henson, and screenplay by Terry Jones, who, interestingly enough, is one of the 6 members of Monty Python. So that might be somewhere where, some of these quirky humor comes from in this movie. So we got tech specs. We got a runtime of 1 hour and 41 minutes, just a little above average, of what you see the hour 30-minute movie. Production company, obviously, Henson Associates, and also Lucasfilm Ltd. This was distributed by TriStar Pictures, which, interestingly enough, I forgot about TriStar Pictures.
How could you forget about TriStar? Ain't that where the Pegasus comes from?
Yeah, exactly. Like, it was very nostalgic because, we haven't, I don't think we've covered a TriStar production yet. So just hearing that, doo-doo, I was like, oh yeah, these guys were a thing.
Oh, it's Pegasus from last week's Clash of the Titans.
So I'll have to look into that, and I'll get back to you guys later to see who bought out TriStar. Because obviously, all these companies, of these older movies that we've watched, none of them really exist anymore. They've been bought up by, whoever, and who probably eventually got bought out by Disney. So a little bit interesting things about the film, as from a technical side. This film took 5 months to film, which is a lot longer than what we usually see. Typically, we see as short as a couple weeks.
Some of them are like 30 days.
Yeah, some of them are like 30 days. Take a month. On average, we see about at least a month or 2 months of filming. For a majority of the movies that we've covered. This one took 5 months because it was very complicated to shoot, all the puppets and the animatronics that were involved. And speaking of, all the stuff that was involved, The early stages of filming, stars Connolly and Bowie found it difficult to interact naturally with the puppets that they shared the scenes with. So Bowie told Movie Line, "I had some initial problems with working with Hoggle and the rest because, for one thing, what they say doesn't come from their mouths, but from the side of the set or from behind you. So, you're talking to something in front of you, but the voice is coming from somewhere else." It'd be
kind of weird.
Yeah, exactly. And Connolly remarked it was a bit strange working almost exclusively with the puppets on the film, but I think both David Bowie and I got over that, and they just took the challenge and, started working with the puppets. And when the film ended, it wasn't a challenge anymore, and they felt with their characters, they were in character. One of the most interesting scenes that we pulled up a little bit of information about is the shaft of hands. So when she's asking to go up or down, down, and then she's falling down the hole, and just a bunch of hands and stuff. So that sequence, the film rig was roughly about 40 feet high. And it required nearly 100 performers to operate the gray, scaly hands for the scene. And she was strapped to a harness while shooting the scene. And they spent time in between takes suspended halfway up the shaft. So she would just be chilling there between takes until they do their next take or anything. And, but yeah, I thought it was really cool how they made the faces with all the
and how they're talking.
And,
what I mean?
Man, that's very unique, and that was definitely one of my favorite scenes, just because of how intricate it was, and I
don't think it was CGI either. It was actually they actually made over 100 latex hands to do that scene.
So there's 100 people doing that. That's crazy. And then finally, we got to mention the set of the Goblin City, which was built on Stage 6 in Elstree Studios in London. This required the largest panoramic backcloth ever made, and according to production designer Elliot Scott, the biggest challenge he faced was during the building of the forest where Sarah and her party is going through, and they're on their way to Jareth's castle. The film production notes state, the entire forest required 120 truckloads of tree branches, 1,200 turfs of grass, 850 pounds of dried leaves, 133 bags of lichen, and 35 bundles of mossy old man's bread. So basically, you can see where a lot of this budget went for this film, and that was, for these sets, obviously, a lot of the puppets being created and made. There were some very interesting and very detailed puppets in this movie, especially at the end when you get all the different types of soldiers, and there was just one goblin that was part gun, part goblin. It gets weird. But yeah, so that's some of the intricate stage work that they had to go through with this movie. And off to my favorite part, the awards. So we have the BAFTA Awards, 1987. They were nominated for the BAFTA Award for Best Special Visual Effects for Roy Field, Brian Freud, George Gibbs, and Tony Dusterville. Then we have, in 1987, Academy of Science Fiction, Fantasy, and Horror Films. Once again nominated Saturn Award for Best Fantasy Film and Best Costumes. Then we have a Hugo Award, 1987. They were nominated for Best Dramatic Presentation. So they didn't win anything. They were nominated for a couple. But, I think just as we mentioned before, there was just a lot of big movies going on this year. And the year that this came out, this kind of went to the wayside. So now we have the synopsis. A 16-year-old girl's wish for her baby brother to be taken away is granted by the Goblin King. Now she has 13 hours to solve a labyrinth to try to get him back.
Do you know why she only had 13 hours?
That's how long it was until her parents got back.
So they're going on a little date, took 13 hours. No, but I mean, do you know why the Goblin King said 13 hours?
No, I don't actually.
Okay, on a normal clock, it only goes to 12. On the clock throughout this entire movie, there's 13 faces on the clock. So when he starts the clock, but they say that from the 12 or midnight to basically the 13th hour. After that, an hour after that, is the best time for goblins and demons and all that to be active to basically portal through the different worlds. So that was a big key thing for this movie. So
the witching hour, so to speak.
Right.
So off to the cast.
I gave Terrence the cast this week.
Once again, bestowed upon me to read through and struggle through.
Right. Well, I gave him the cast because, number one, there's only a select few humans in this. And then I gave him a whole slew of the puppet names because we believe that, we don't just want to focus on the human cast of this because I believe that the puppeteers deserve credit for a lot of this movie. So we don't want to make anybody feel shortchanged, and we want to give credit where credit's due for all their hard work.
And they definitely were a huge driving force for this movie.
Right.
So we have the cast. We have David Bowie as Jareth, the Goblin King, obviously, the ruler of the goblins. We had Jennifer Connelly as Sarah Williams, a 16-year-old girl who journeys through the labyrinth to find her baby brother. Then we had Toby Frode as Toby Williams, Sarah's baby half-brother. We had Christopher Malcolm as Robert, Sarah and Toby's father. And Shelley Thompson as Irene, Toby's mother and Sarah's stepmother. Then we had Natalie Finlan as the Labyrinth Fairies, a bunch of deceitful barefoot fairies that reside in the labyrinth. That was a pretty funny scene. We have juggler Michael Motion, who performed Jareth's elaborate crystal ball, contact jungling, and manipulations. So the whole crystal ball manipulation, that was done by Michael Motion.
Right, and you know how he did that? He actually put his hands through David Bowie, the capo rim. And so that's actually him. If you watch closely, you can kind of see, when I think he's in her bedroom or whatever.
Yeah.
And you see him doing the tricks with the ball. Yeah, you can tell. He just got black gloves on. You know what I mean? And it's really well done.
It is actually. Yeah, I didn't.
And doing it without even seeing. You know what I mean? Because he's behind David Bowie.
It's funny when I was watching, I was thinking to myself, I'm like, did he teach himself to do this for the film, or how did they pull this off? Turns out, it was a guy sticking his hands through the costume and doing that blind. That's pretty amazing. So now we have the voice actors / puppeteers of all the puppets, to which there are many. I'm going to need that part. Yeah. So we have the character Hoggle, who was voiced by Brian Henson, son of why am I blanking on
Jim?
Names? Jim Henson. See, me and names, man. I'm terrible with names. The bodysuit was Sherry Weiser. Then we have Ludo, the big adorable dude.
The Terrence of the episode, if you will.
Bad smell. We have Ron Muick, who was puppeteered by Rob Mills. Then we have Sir Dynamis, one of my favorites. Operated by Dave Goles with David Barclay. Who probably there's I was like maybe the two are handling both him and Ambrosius, but Ambrosius has two separate handlers.
And don't forget, some of them have different voices too.
That's true.
Puppeteers.
So Cern Dunamis was voiced by David Sognacy. I butchered that, I know it. Then we have the worm.
Which is probably my favorite character.
Oh, yeah. This was voiced by Timothy Batson.
I said, hello.
Did you say hello? Well, no, I said hello.
Probably my favorite character in the movie.
Then we have the Wise Man, who was puppeteered by Frank Oz. And voiced
puppeteered Yoda.
Yep. And then we voiced by Michael Hornan. And we have the Hat. David Goles puppeteered the Hat, and another voice by David Sognacy. Wow, I'm gonna have to say his name a lot. Okay, we'll refer to him as David S. So I don't have to butcher his name every time. We have the Drunk Lady puppeteered by Karen Prell, voiced by Denise Breyer. Then we have the Four Guards, puppeteered by Steve Whitmore, Kevin Clash, Anthony Asbury, and David Goles. These are all part of the the Henson production team. A lot of familiar names. And then we have voice actors Anthony Jackson, Douglas Blackwell, David S., and Timothy Bateson. Then we have the Right Door Knocker, puppeteered by Anthony Asbury and voiced by David Healy. And then we have the Left Door Knocker, David Goles, puppeteered and voice acted by Robert Beatty.
And let me throw this there. If you haven't seen this movie, everything's a puppet or a Muppet.
Everything.
That's why I'm laughing, because he's like left door knocker, right door knocker. So if you haven't seen the movie, you don't know why we're laughing, but it's pretty funny too.
Yeah.
So make sure you check it out. Go
Absolutely. As you should. Usually when you find out what the episode is, you got to watch the movie first. Then we have puppeteers for the different fairies. We have Fairy 1, voiced by Kevin Clash, and then it was operated by David Bradclay and Toby Philpott. And so Kevin Clash was actually the original voice of Elmo.
Well, the puppeteer, did he do the voice too?
He did the voice.
Okay.
Yeah. And then we have Fairy 2 by Karen Prell, with Robert Muick and Ian Tom were the puppeteers. And Charles Angus was Agnes was the voice actor. Mm-hmm. Fairy 3, David Goles with Robert Mills and Sherry Amott. And Fairy 3 and Fairy 4 were both voice acted by Danny John Jules. And Fairy 4 was operated by Stephen Whitmore and Shel Henson with Kevin Bradshaw. Then we have Fairy 5, The Last Fairy, operated by Anthony Asbury with Alistair Fullerton and Roland Cruson, voice acted by Richard Bobkin. Then we have Ambrosius,
the dog,
the dog, Sir Didymus's untrusty steed.
Noble steed.
Operated by Steve Whitmore and Kevin Clash, and voiced by Percy Edwards. Then we have all the goblins. So I'm just going to first name all of the puppeteers and then all the voice actors, because they're not discerned by, particular goblin. There's all the goblins. So we have the puppeteers being Don Aston, Michael Bayliss, Martin Brittle, Fiona Bionor Brown, Simon Berkeley, David Bulbeck, Sue Drace, Golf Felix, Trevor Freeborn, Christine Gavinville, David Greenway, Brian James, Jan King, Ronnie Lee Drew, Terry Lee, Christopher Lith, Karen Mullen, Angie Passmore, Michael Peterson, Nigel Plaskett, Judy Pierce, Michael Quinn, Jilly Robick? Yeah, I'm going to go with Robick. David Rudham, David Scholler, Robin Stevens, Ian Tregongning. Wow, that's a hard one. Mary Turner, Robert Tyner, Mac Wilson, and Francis Wright. Only stumbled on a couple.
So but now you haven't got to the voices yet.
Now we have the voices. We have Michael Atwell, Sean Bennett, Timothy Batson, Douglas Blackwell, John Boothall, Brian Henson, Anthony Jackson, Peter Maneker, John Muick, Steve Nallon, Jen Ravens, N. Rittel, Carrie Shale, and David S.
Very well done, Terrence. Very well done. I don't think Morgan Freeman could have done it any better than what you just did. So now let's go ahead and talk a little bit about this movie. My notes, there's so many here, and they're all jumbled. I got to highlight pin marks everywhere. So if we jump around the scenes or we jump around the information, we'll probably go to one scene, then
as we usually do.
But then we'll go back to probably the end of the movie. Then we'll jump back just the way that my notes end up. And I was shuffling around because I was watching the movie again before we started recording.
Yeah.
So I was writing down notes and everything. So Terrence, the owl in the title sequence is computer generated. The first attempt at a photorealistic CGI animal character in a feature film.
That's interesting to know. That's their first time attempting it. You can also tell it was their first time attempting it.
Hey, but back then, and also,
but I mean, for being the first time, that's a step in the right direction.
Right.
Yeah.
By the way, the guy that was doing the juggling, he didn't even have a video screen. Sometimes they have video screens that you could see what you're doing. It was all pure blind, man. I was like, wow. This is very interesting, what I figured out, and I don't know if you caught this when you watched the movie. So all the characters that Sarah runs into in the Labyrinth world, whatever world they call it, They all can come back to her bedroom at the beginning of the movie. She has a stuffed animal that looks like Sir Didymus on her dresser. A doll that looks like Ludo on the shelves next to her door, along with the book Where the Wild Things Are. There's a fiery doll on the shelves next to her bed. The bookends with goblins look like Hoggle on her dresser. A figurine of Jareth on the right side of her desk. There's also a scrapbook shown in the newspaper clippings of Sarah's famous actress mom with another man who is David Bowie. The dress that she wears in the ballroom scene can also be seen in the little miniature doll in our music box.
Yeah.
And then there's a wooden maze game on her dresser next to her books. It kind of looks like the hedge section of the Labyrinth where they were running around. There's also a small painting on her wall that depicts a contraption much like the one operated by the cleaners. And then there's a copy of the famous picture by M.C. Escher, which is used in the room where the final confrontation with Jareth occurs.
It's that room that's all upside down, sideways. And that's one of my favorite scenes, by the way. I think it was very well done.
Terrence,
I did catch at the end, though. I didn't catch it in the beginning, but after at the end, I'm like, this feels like a lot of like her imagination and not so much of like she. So I think that's kind of a weird thing. I'm like, wait, is she imagining all of this because all of these are drawn from objects in her room, not to mention a play she's part of.
Well, Terrence, why you gotta ruin it? That's like a great end comment, and you're throwing it right here at the beginning.
Well, hey, they should have watched it by now.
No, I'm just saying for your final review of the movie.
Oh, no, I was just commenting on like...
The dance magic, which was, Terrence was dancing that earlier, the dance magic scene consisted of over 48 Muppets, 52 puppeteers, and 8 people in goblin costumes. Brian Henson revealed that in Inside the Labyrinth special.
I wonder how they got the kid to be okay and all that.
No, well, we'll get to it. I got it in here. So, yes, Terrence, I know you liked Hoggle so much, but a Hoggle puppet got lost on an airplane and remained undiscovered until it turned up in the unclaimed baggage center. How are you going to leave it as an unclaimed baggage? You know what I mean?
Right?
It was in a store in Scottsboro, Alabama. When a worker opened the crate, he got a scare by the sight of the puppet. Is now on display in the museum there.
That's great.
Here we go. In the scene where Toby is seated on King Jared's lap, the baby has a fixed and hypnotized look off camera as Jared's murmuring something into his ear. In fact, Toby screamed so much during the many takes of this scene that something had to be done to keep him quiet. So, fortunately, one of the crew members had a glove puppet named Sooty. For the duration of Jared's speech, David Bowie had the Sooty puppet on one hand out of shot, gently wiggling it to distract Toby. The child was entranced, hence the hypnotic stare and the perfect silence.
Huh.
So David Bowie, he's talking, doing his lines, and he's sitting there wiggling his finger with the other thing.
By the way, I imagine that some of those puppets would be terrifying for a child.
By the way, the baby who played Toby was actually the son of Brian Froud, who was the conceptual designer for the movie The Dark Crystal, which we talked about in the Jim Henson movie. Mm-hmm. David Bowie did the voice, the gurgling sound for the baby in the song Magic Dance.
Oh, really?
Yeah. This was also the final theatrical movie directed by Jim Henson before his death.
Really? Okay.
So, Sarah's dog Merlin is also used for Sir Didymus's Mount Ambrosius. I thought that was funny too. Here we go. Since Terrence did the cast, I will be covering some of the people that could have played the different characters or audition. Michael Jackson, Prince, and Mick Jagger were all considered to play the Goblin King, Jareth. Jim Henson preferred Sting, but his kids convinced him that David Bowie, who had just reached his peak of mainstream popularity with the Let's Dance album, would be the best suited for it. And not only that, but Bowie had decided that he wanted to make a children's movie at the same time, so it just kind of, he thought it was a great script, and it was funnier and amusing than he thought he could do.
I can honestly see any of those people in that role. Maybe not Prince. just because I don't know,
hey, well, if Michael Jackson was doing it, and the baby was sitting on his lap, he already had the glove in his hand, so he would be.
Just because Prince was very associated with very adult things. Like I guess given I wasn't around in the area of Prince, but I don't know if he did anything geared towards children. You know what I mean? So I guess it would be weird to see him in a kid's movie where I can see Michael Jackson or like Mick Jagger just because it's Mick Jagger. But it's very interesting.
I think Ozzy Osbourne would have been a funny one too. just for the record. Ludo, the rig that Ludo had to wear, the costume that he had to wear, weighed over 100 pounds.
Oh, geez.
Henson's like, look, that's too much. You got to make it lighter for the characters inside of it. And so they came back with one that was 75 pounds, but it was still too heavy for the actors. So inside, so they had the two puppeteers, Ron Muick and Rob Mills, split the performance. Hoggle had a lot of people on him. Consisted of Sherry Weasler inside the suit. 4 puppeteers led by Brian Henson controlling 18 motors inside the face rig.
Wow.
Henson had a mechanical mitt on his right hand where he could control Hoggle's jaw movements and provided the voice. Another puppeteer provided further lip movements with another mitt. The third puppeteer used a fingertip joystick lever to control Hoggle's eyes and eyelids. The fourth used a similar mechanism to animate the eyebrows and a foot pedal to control the skin around Hoggle's eyes. So it said that they had to rehearse for weeks together to make sure everything
to
looks
be in
smooth.
sync,
right? And I can only imagine. You know, what I mean, that would be so hard.
I mean, that just shows how much time and dedication goes into puppeteering.
Right. One of the choreographers for this movie was Cheryl McFadden. Do you know who that is?
I don't.
Well, she's one of the uncredited dancers in the movie, but she also played Dr. Beverly Crusher on Star Trek: The Next Generation.
Oh, okay.
So, Dr. Beverly Crusher. In honor to his friend, Jim Henson, producer George Lucas chose not to do any interviews during the release of this movie as to not steal Jim Henson's thunder, who was at the time one of his best friends until his death. So he's like, let him get all the credit for this.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Or did Lucas just say, it only made $12 million, I don't want to do it. But I wonder if it would have been a bigger box office success based upon his Star Wars.
I think he still would have took, because this is, you know, obviously after Star Wars, so like, you know, he's still it's not something he needed to like increase his fame. He was already pretty, you know, famous, so like, you know, I think even if the movie did make more, he would still give his friend a chance in the spotlight.
Right. One of the jokes that goes through the entire run of this movie is nobody can really get Hoggle's name right.
Oh, yeah.
So Sarah calls him Hogwart at one point. Hogwart originally comes from the famous British humor book The Complete Molesworth by Geoffrey Williams and Ronald Searle. And I wonder if this is where the lady got Hogwarts for the
I was thinking that
Harry
too.
Potter.
I was like, I caught that too.
Yeah, so I don't know. And this is really cool, this next thing. There are hidden faces in 7 scenes in this movie. It's really cool. And here they are. Basically, they resemble the head that Jareth leans on against before giving Hoggle the peach, which is actually David Bowie's actual face. So the faces can be found, if you want to look them up, in the upper right-hand corner of the stone maze just after the worm shakes his head and says, if she had kept on going that way, the very next scene up in the upper right, you'll see it. It's on the stone. To the right of the screen after the rung under Hoggle breaks as he watches it fall. The upper left corner of the hedge maze as Hoggle is muttering, get through the labyrinth, one thing's for sure. The lower right corner of the wall bordering the bog of eternal stench, just after the ledge breaks under Sarah and Hoggle's for the first time.
That scene was so silly.
During the wide shot of the hedge maze in the middle left of the stony floor just after the hat says, it's so stimulating being your hat. And in the forest, as Sir Didymus says, we should reach the castle well before day. So if you want to go back and check those out, it's pretty cool. The movie was loosely based on Outside Over There, a children's picture book written and illustrated by Maurice Sendak in 1981. Her famous book, Where the Wild Things Are, seen in the beginning of this movie in the bedroom. So,
yeah.
Did you ever read that, Terry?
Where the Wild Things Are?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to say, you look like you would have.
I mean, it was a read in school. Yeah.
Do you know what was filming right next door when this movie was being filmed? Legend was being filmed next door to Legend, which meant the cast and crew of both movies often intermingled. Brian Henson happened to meet and develop a crush on Mia Sara. Years later, the two met again and were married. So, during the Escher room scene, there is a sequence where Jareth's crystal ball seems to bounce up the stairs into Toby's hand, you know, ding, ding,
Oh,
ding,
yeah.
yeah. How they got that is they filmed it, they gave the ball to Toby, he dropped it.
He dropped it, and then
they shot it in reverse.
The film.
Right.
That makes sense.
According to the Goblin Companion, which there is a book on the description of every goblin in the labyrinth, the junk lady who carries everything on her back is named Agnes. And Terrence, I know you're going to appreciate this. In 1986, 2 video games based on this movie were released. One in Japan, one in the U.S. and a couple other markets. Labyrinth, the computer game for Apple II and the Commodore 64, was released in the West. It was the first graphic adventure game developed by Lucasfilm Games, a company that became LucasArts in the 90s. In the game, the player only had 13 real-time in-game hours to solve the dangerous labyrinth and thwart Jarrah's plan. In Japan, Nintendo and Henson Associates released a different game simply called Labyrinth for the Famicom system. The game was almost entirely in Japanese since it was made exclusively for the Japanese market and never got an official Western release, although popular English unofficial fan translations do exist. The game is an action-adventure role-playing game, not unlike Zelda, and is also the real-time in-game clicking clock like the Western counterpart.
So I'm actually really interested in. I didn't know that LucasArts, before they became LucasArts, had made a game for this. And typically, for people who don't know, they LucasArts was known for one of the biggest games that they made that was sort of a puzzle adventure game would be the Curse of Monkey Island. That's one of their biggest ones. There's these incredibly high difficulty games where you have to solve puzzles and there's many ways to game over. So I'm very interested to see at least screen caps of.
Well, not only that,
Labyrinth
but you're talking about the Apple II and the Commodore 64.
Yeah, so the Commodore 64, they made a couple games based off movies. They did Blade Runner,
right?
They did,
but I'm saying as far as the save progress, if you only had 13 real hours of time, did you have to play straight through it? Because the save function didn't really come a thing to Zelda.
Save functions were, I would say, for these types of games,
you usually had to punch in a code to get back to exactly where you were.
Like a lot of these older games, you would put in a code, and that code would basically kind of resume wherever you were. So I'm not sure about this one. Maybe it was one that they expected you to beat in 13 flat.
Well, I know you. I've been in the same situation. I know you have too, where you get so involved in a game, hours just pass by. And you're where did the time go? You know what I mean? But today's games, you got to go 40 to 80 hours to complete, and then plus the side missions. So this is probably a lot less toned down back then. You know what I mean? But
and then you also got to think some of these games are just you do have to beat it in that one sitting, or else it's almost like a memorization thing, kind of like Dragon's Lair, the old arcade game, kind of similar in you just have to beat it. Or if you lose, then you start over from scratch. You just have to remember the right combinations to all the different
I remember
things.
Going to the arcade when they used to have arcades in the malls here called Aladdin's Palace, and going in there and playing that stuff. It was fantastic. So, we talked about this a little earlier. I'll just comment here again. The 13th hour margin has a symbolic meaning. It was not an arbitrary number chosen randomly. Sarah made her wish around midnight. That is the most powerful time when demons, goblins, and other malevolent creatures can cross their dimension and enter the earthly realm. Moreover, according to the folklore, there is a time rift between midnight and 1 o'clock a.m., which is normally the 13th hour. In order for this time circumvention to be activated, something jarring and horrible must happen, just like Sarah's wish. So it goes on, explains a lot more stuff, which I'm not going to take the time to read all that.
Yeah.
So. Helen Bonham Carter, Jane Krakowski, Yasmin Bleeth, Sarah Jessica Parker, Mary Stuart Masterson, Laura Dern, Maddie Corman, Carrie Green, Lily Taylor, Laura Sangiacomo, Ali Sheedy, which we know from the movies we've done with her, Mia Sara, and Marissa Tomei all auditioned for the role of Sarah Williams. Krakowski, Sheedy, and Corman were all highly considered for the role, but Jennifer Connelly eventually won the role from them. Any person you would like to see play Sarah there?
I would have to see faces with a lot of these names. As I've stated before, I'm terrible with names. Especially when it comes to actors. If you guys haven't been able to tell from now on, I'm not the best with names, but I know as soon as I see the face, I'm like, oh, okay, I know who they are, and I know what they've been in. But as far as this list that you've presented me, I don't believe I recognize any of those particular names.
Nobody?
Even the actress who got the role. I feel like I've seen her in a different movie before.
She was in Spider-Man? The Far From Home or whatever. She plays his mom, don't she? She plays Peter Parker or Aunt. I think she plays his aunt.
Is that older her?
I think that's her.
Oh, man, okay.
She was in a couple other things. I pulled it up here a second ago if you want to look it up. The original script ended with Sarah punching and kicking Jareth, then watching him shrink down until he becomes a small and snivelly goblin, which I would have liked that too. In the beginning of the iconic magic dancing, Toby is seen crying while surrounded by numerous goblins, as Terrence stated. In reality, the baby actor Toby wasn't the least bit scared of any of the puppets in animatronic shoes. They had to wait until he was tired and wanting to nap after filming to nap to film the musical number. Toby's name was supposed to be Freddy in the drafts of the story. The baby's name was changed because the baby Toby would only answer to Toby and react. So, hey, Freddy, what, Toby? Oh, okay.
That's funny.
When Sarah, Hoggle, Sardidimus, and Ludo enter the Goblin City, several roaming animals can be seen, one of which is a crawly, a furry shellfish eaten by Skeksis during the feast in Jim Henson's The Dark Crystal. So there's a little bit of throwback. So they are they in the same universe? Continuity? Could be. Maybe setting up their own Muppet universe.
So I looked up Jennifer Connelly's IMDb. She was a character in Far From Home. She wasn't the aunt though.
Okay.
She played Karen. But she has been in other notable movies such as Snowpiercer, Requiem of a Dream. Which is
A Beautiful Mind, I believe she's in.
She was in A Beautiful Mind. That's such a good movie. It's funny because it's a movie I forget about, but when I like hear it mentioned, I'm like, oh yeah, that movie. That movie's crazy. She was also in. Let's see if any other notable ones. An animation called Nine, which I think is an underrated animation that really doesn't get brought up a lot. Inkheart.
That was a good movie too. I liked that too.
Yeah, the Hulk in 2003.
I liked it too.
One.
I guess
and yeah, those are the big notable movies that she's been in.
So throughout this movie, there is a black crow. Sarah, when Sarah crosses the bog, it's perched watching her. It's also in the junkyard, and again with a group of friends and her as they enter the Goblin City. So there, once again, I don't know if it has any symbolism, but there's always a black crow. It reminds me of. In the Lord of the Rings, where they have the spies among us, the birds, or bats, or whatever. So the colors and numbers on the armored Goblin Knights were inspired by those of Thomas the Tank Engine and Friends.
That's an interesting
because Brian Fry, he's the dad of Toby, so he's probably got those toys laying around. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Before setting on the day of casting a rock star as the Goblin King, Jim Henson considered Simon McCorkindale, Michael Gothard, and Kevin Kline for the role. The large urn that Sarah and Hoggle climb out of from the oblette or whatever, it ended up being in Brian Ford's garden. He took it and put it in his garden.
Right.
Also, according to Brian Fraud, Kenny Baker. Do you know who Kenny Baker is?
What was he in?
He's R2-D2.
Oh, yeah. Once again, I don't want to see him, man.
The machine gun goblin.
Which was just a random insert, because up till now it's just been spears and swords and whatnot. They even had cannonballs, and then suddenly you have this machine gun goblin.
I loved it. One of the reasons why Hoggle was always making groaning noises between lines was to keep his mouth open as much as possible, so that actress Sherry Weisler was able to look out and make sure she was in the right spot. This was the first time Jim Henson had worked with a baby in one of his works.
That makes sense, yeah.
David Bowie has the same haircut that Limeall, the performer of the Neverending Story from 1984 theme song, wore. Another fantasy movie with puppets that told a story of loss of innocence. However, Bowie's version is definitely a wig. And here's something funny. If you notice in this movie, a lot of times they say, it's a piece of cake. It's a piece of cake.
Yeah.
Well, every time they say it's a piece of cake, something bad's about to happen shortly after. And when I was highlighting this, the movie was playing, and it's where they go to the door, and she's like, she's trying to figure out which door to go in, and he's like, would you lie to me? Would you lie to me? And she goes in there, and she's like, see, I figured it out, piece of cake. And she opens the door, and she falls.
Goes in the wrong one.
Here's something interesting. The reason I like the worm so much is because it appears that the worm has double-crossed Sarah by sending her off on the wrong track. However, this may not necessarily be the case. By going through the entire labyrinth, which the worm basically forced her to do, Sarah met her friends. It was only with much assistance from Ludo, Hoggle, and Sardidimus that Sarah managed to survive the robot guard and massive attack in Goblin City. If she went straight to the castle, she would be most likely injured and chased away by the Goblin army. So the wrong choice may ultimately be the right choice, which is a common underlying theme in this movie. So that's one way of looking at it. Some little goose. The end of the boom microphone is clearly visible when they almost fall into the bog of stench.
Huh.
Which I thought of you, Terrence, when they were crossing the bog of stench and they're stepping and it's making the farting sounds,
Oh my
as
God.
they go across. I mean, come on. Every time you hear a farting sound in a movie, you just crack up no matter what. There's two things that's always going to make a guy laugh. Farting sounds and somebody getting racked. Okay?
It was
just two things that's always
so
going to be funny.
silly. Just like I was like, this is the bog, isn't it? And then they pan over to the bog and you can even hear like burping and like other like gross noises. I was like, oh my God.
And you can tell they're we gotta get out of here. As Sarah runs down the first corridor of the labyrinth, the ribbons on her vest are tied, then they're hanging loose again, then they're tied again. So that continuity stuff comes in a lot of movies.
Yeah.
The knot which keeps Ludo hanging keeps changing. So I thought that was pretty interesting. There's a lot of wires visible in this production, even though they tried to brush it up, but during the battles in the streets of the Gamma City, they can be seen almost on all the evil knights on horseback. The wires are seen on Haga when he tries to throw the pilot out of the knight armor suit. When Toby catches the crystal ball on the stairs in the Escher room, you can see the wire clipped to his clothes to stop him from falling forward off the edge. You can see him suspended in the ruins of Escher and Sarah and Jareth's final confrontation. This is one thing that I thought was, wow, looks really way too fake. Because when, we're doing the dance baby dance scene and he takes him and he throws him in the air, you can tell it's a baby doll. You know what I mean? He throws him in the air, you're like, well, okay. And then he comes down and lands in the puppet. You can tell it's obviously a baby doll.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And then when Sarah's getting to the labyrinth, the background looks fake because the clouds are not moving. And I thought when we first started this, and he opened her bedroom window or whatever it is, the patio doors or whatever.
Yeah.
You look at, and I was like, man, this just looks so fake. I mean, this looks really terrible, and I don't know if I'm going to like this movie.
One of the scenes that almost kind of like took me out of it, in lieu of like you can tell it's a fake backdrop or whatnot, is when she's getting harassed by those like little creatures that take off their heads and they're like, let's take off her head. And then like that whole scene you can tell is like green screen, but it just felt so
even
off,
one of them's transparent. You know what I mean?
Exactly. And like all of them, like all the other scenes are on sets except for this one. This one's on a green screen mostly. So it just felt weird and out of place compared to the rest of the movie. And I think because the movie is mostly done on sets and stages that were just carefully crafted, when they do decide to do this green screen, there's one other time they use a green screen, and that's like at the very end. But they also use that dreamy, hazy kind of filter to like kind of filter that out, so you can't really tell as much.
Well, and also what I didn't understand is at the end of the movie when she's in her bedroom, and she's like, I still need you guys, or whatever, she looks in the mirror and sees them, and they turn around, it's a big party. I think some of those creatures that lose their head are in there, and I'm like, a couple of little goblins, and I was like, why are they in here? They just tried to kill you. Now, could it be that the Goblin King had him under his spell, and now that he's dead, she is now the leader of the Goblin Kingdom, the Goblin Queen, if you will? I
was thinking the same thing. It was,
and also I think, if I remember right, the cap that she puts on to tell Toby the story at the beginning of the movie is like that red and white striped hat, like the little knit cap.
Yeah,
and that's also the outfit he's wearing with David Bowie when he's got him. He's in that red and white stripe. So I thought maybe I didn't see any notes about that, but I think it might be part of the same.
Might be a parallel kind of thing.
So Terrence, go ahead and tell me your thoughts and feelings on this movie.
So, it was a good one-time watch for me. Like, I did enjoy it, and I do like David Bowie, so I enjoyed the songs. And plus, it's always fun just hearing David Bowie songs. And they're catchy. But, I mean, besides that, I feel this movie made me want to watch other Jim Henson works more than I was wanting to watch this particular movie. So, like, I'm watching this, I'm like, man, I really want to go back and watch Dark Crystal. I haven't seen that in forever. And even before, we were doing started this episode, we were like, oh man, Never Ending Story. We got to get that done sooner or later, because that's another really good movie. It uses puppeteers and stuff, and so. I feel like what this movie did has been done and better already, and then proceeds to be done better by movies preceding it. The whole sort of whimsical, kid ends up in imaginary land, learns a lesson, and comes back, which I kind of understand now, like going through the notes and reading it, but I guess I wasn't exactly clear on what the message was or what lesson she had to learn. Because, in the beginning, you can tell she's not completely okay with. I did understand, her not being okay with the, the whole, not accepting her stepmother, I suppose, and then her, her father's relationship with the stepmother, and having the stepbrother that she now has to take care of, and feeling left out, I suppose. But I guess I was trying to figure out what lesson she had to learn and what lesson she did learn by the end. So I guess maybe because that message didn't come clear, and maybe because I haven't, taken time to sit down and analyze it. But once again, this is like a kid's movie, and typically the messages should be pretty, clear cut of hey, this kid's doing this wrong, and this is what the kid learned, and now, blah blah blah. So I mean, what's your takeaway on that? Because I do want to, maybe I missed something, and then maybe you can explain. Or,
all right, now here's a couple of thoughts I was having, because I watched this 3 times.
Yeah.
Number one, does it ever say what happened to her mom, her real mom?
It doesn't. No, it never states what happened to her real mom.
Number one, she could have mommy issues. I'm just saying. Okay.
Yeah.
Number two, here's where I go with this, just from everything from the start of the movie to the end of the movie, and I'm going to propose this. I personally believe that it was all a dream. And the reason I say that is because at the beginning, when she's in she's reading out of the Labyrinth book she has. Yeah. I think she's a bookworm, and she's reading that. She's out there reciting, "Give me the baby bag. You have no power over me." And she's like, I always forget that line. And then her stepmom yells for her, or she's like, "It's almost 7:00," and she runs back home.
Yep.
And her dad comes out. She's like, "Hey, you need to watch your brother. He's already upstairs or whatever." And what I surmise to you is when she went to her bedroom, I think she's laying down and the baby's crying. You know what I mean? And she's like, "Make him stop. Just stop." She goes, "Do you want a story?" I think that the baby was already asleep from when her parents left, because the dad had already put him down. And I think that when she went up to her bedroom, and she just lay down, I think she was so exhausted that she fell asleep. And everything that's in her room, you see all the statues, all the boxes, the games, the books.
Yeah. And
she had that little red Labyrinth book. She had the Goblin King statue on her dresser and all that. I think that she was so enamored with the book, because sometimes some people love the book better than the movie.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think she had loved that book so much that she was memorizing that book, because you can tell, or play whatever it was.
Yeah.
And I think that she was so exhausted that she laid down and she fell asleep, daydreamed, whatever you will. And I think this was all a figment of her imagination about overcoming or actually living the book out in her dream.
Yeah.
Because basically when she wakes up, she goes out there and it's only been a few minutes.
Yeah.
Or it's not even 12 yet. You know what I mean? And I think just because of everything that was in her room and based around her surroundings, I think it all came upon her into this
dream.
Right, like a dream world. Now, am I saying that's right? No. But I mean, that's what I'm taking away from it, because... And I think the main thing after that is when she's up in her room and she's glad to be back home. That's when I think she actually wakes up.
Yeah.
And she puts all the stuff away. She takes the ballerina dress, or the little miniature, what do you call it, thing that plays music box, and she puts it in her drawer. She takes the picture of David Bowie and is that her mom or stepmom?
Yeah.
Puts it in the drawer. She takes a lot of the stuff, and then she gives her. She goes and sees Toby, who's laying in his bed. Lancelot says, "I want you to have him now." You know what I mean? Because she was really upset that one of her teddy bears was missing.
And this is actually where I want to interject. And I, like I said, I think hearing part of the notes you were reading kind of brought it into perspective, and that the key thing being the loss of innocence of she was probably, at least based off what we've seen, an only child up to this point, being spoiled and getting all the things she wants and stuff, and really kind of probably taking It seems that she's a bookworm. She's typically reading books by herself, and always with her toys and whatnot. And then so you have that scene where she's with the junk ladies, and then they're trying to enamor her with all these things that used to enamor her, but now the loss of innocence being she has to put sort of some of her childish ways aside, because now she has to take care of a baby brother, which she didn't expect to get. It just came out of nowhere with the stepmother. And so they're trying to enamor her with toys when she loses her memory. And then at first she's like, oh yeah, all this stuff, and then she's like, wait, and then she starts memorizing the words in the book, that line in the book that she's always repeating, and then she remembers, oh yeah, I have to save Toby, and to which she goes, this is all junk, what matters is my new family. And I think that would be the lesson that she learned from this is like, okay, I have to be accepting of my new family, and I have to, embrace the fact that I'm a bigger sister. But I think that where I kind of get confused on if that is the message is usually the message is highlighted at the end, where I feel like the end highlight message of the movie is a little far from what it was trying to tell, which is like, oh, it's okay to rely on your friends and stuff like that. But at no point in the movie did she have friends that she like pushed away or anything. So it was, you get what I'm saying?
Well, I understand that too, but let's make two things perfectly clear. Number one, her stepmom was a character herself because she says, look, we never go out. She's like, you go out every weekend.
Yeah.
So therefore, I think the stepmom is shying away from her responsibilities too, that, hey, you got two kids to take care of, not just one.
Yeah.
You need to accept her for who she is and help her to, help teach her, the way she should be, why we do things the way we do.
Yeah.
And maybe she's mad because maybe her dad left her mom for her. Don't know. That's under the bridge. But the end scene I would like to talk about is when she looks in the mirror and she's like, well, we'll be here. I think Sago says, well, we'll be here if you need us. And she's like, well, I do need you, and she turns around, nobody's there, and then turns around again, and it's a big party in her room.
Yeah.
So my question is, her mom and dad had just got home, and they're yelling for her, and then now she's throwing this big party in her room. So if her mom and dad would have came up there, would they have seen all of them,
these
or would they have just seen her jumping around on the bed by herself and think that she needs to be committed to a mental institute? That's the thing I was getting to,
and it was very confusing. Like the end really didn't. I feel that's where this movie sort of fails for me. Is like I feel like the end didn't capitalize on a message,
exactly,
which like typically movies like this do. I mean, you look at and I'm not going to completely get into them because these are movies we'll probably cover, but like the end of Neverending Story, it capitalizes on a message. The end of Dark Crystal capitalizes on a message. The end of something that does very similar, it comes years later, I believe it came out in like 94, but Page Master. Kid gets sucked into the books, there's a thing that he needs to work on. He learns a message. The message is just capitalized and show that, hey, there's this growth, and you know exactly what the message is by the end of the movie. This movie I watched, I'm seeing messages, but nothing's really capitalized at the end, and I'm not really sure what it's trying to tell me.
Yeah, I would have loved to have seen a different ending to this movie. I understand why they did what they did, but just to leave it there, maybe have her dad pop in the door and just catch her dancing or something like,
or even
then,
just see it.
And then just run up and give him a big hug, or give her stepmom a hug or something. But I would have loved to see maybe something on the maybe seen Ludo and all of them in the Labyrinth world, whatever world it was called. Maybe see them acting a little different too. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where, just anything, something just seemed off about the ending, and I don't know if it was because it was behind in production or whatever. That's a lot of puppets on that bedroom scene.
Like, I wonder if they wrote something different for this, and they're like, well, we have to settle on this because we're running out of time. Like, who knows?
They could, but overall, it was an okay movie. I mean, it's not groundbreaking for me. It's not one of my favorites. I'd rather watch the Muppet movie personally, or Dark Crystal, but it was okay. I mean, Neverending Story and all these other ones have come out before this, and I think it set the bar so high for me that this one was just it was okay.
And it's like I said earlier, when I was watching this, and something I didn't mention is just due to having to do a bunch of other stuff, I watched this movie in 3 different segments, and even from like the beginning, it didn't exactly like pull me in. Like, I don't know why, but typically I like movies like these, like all the other aforementioned movies. I'm very excited to rewatch eventually. But when I'm watching this movie, and this was a movie that I had brought up because I was like, I haven't seen Labyrinth, and I've heard a lot of good things about it, so we should cover it. And so here we are, and we've covered it, and it just left me wanting to watch those other movies. But it didn't draw me in. It had some fun scenes. I had favorite characters. I think Sir Didymus was hilarious. Easily one of my favorites. And I do like sort of the story progression that some of these characters go through. I think Hoggle shows a lot of character growth, where his message is clear. You know what I mean? Like, he's got sort of this cowardly lion complex, and he overcomes it for the power of friendship, right?
And that's what I was getting ready to say to you, is I see a lot of similarities to this and The Wizard of Oz, which the Wizard of Oz book is in her bedroom.
It is.
Because, she goes to a faraway thing, has 3 friends that help her along the way. Exactly. And I thought, man, this is
I did see that sort of parallel.
Because, the things that were in her room are the things that appeared just like in Wizard of Oz, that her farm friends are, and all them are in the Oz.
Yep.
And that's what I drew to conclusion. So, like I said, it was an okay movie. The puppeteering is fantastic. I much prefer claymation and Muppets and Puppets compared to CGI. That's just me. I think it takes a lot more talent and a lot more work to do that.
Yeah, I think that's why a lot of movies typically lean towards CGI, just because it's easier versus, or in some cases, cheaper. Especially like time scale wise, because imagine you can probably easily cut this movie in like half production wise, just if they did, if it was made today and they did CGI instead of puppeteering, like obviously it would take not even like half the time, but I think because they go through the effort of the puppeteering and stuff and just really skillful, talented production workers. I mean, besides all the story and everything, the movie does look great. Like, I always enjoy seeing puppeteering and just the intricate animatronics of these things and these hand-built sets, these very intricate settings, like the tunnel she falls through. That was super cool.
Yeah, or the hands, you mean?
Yeah, and the when she's chasing the Goblin King through the M.C. Escher painting, pretty much. Like, that was super cool. Just, her getting lost in this, the M.C. Escher, esque, like, labyrinth kind of place, and him just navigating it like nothing, and he's upside down, and then he's sideways, and he's just, like, doing all these crazy things. That was really cool. So there were highlights to this movie that I did enjoy. There were some, parts where I found myself laughing, especially with Sir Didymus. But the biggest things that strayed me away from it was I wasn't sure where what the main character was going through right at the get go. Like, after thinking about it, I'm like, okay, I understand why she was acting how she was. But at the time, when I first started watching, I'm like, I'm not really sure what her problem is. You know what I mean?
Right, and I think there's so much underlying issues with her that they don't share the entire thing with her, like her mom, her dad, what's the relationship with her stepmom. She loves her brother, or stepbrother. Did that ever make it clear if it was her brother or stepbrother? I think she just said her brother.
I'm not sure. It's not very clear.
So a lot of good things. Like I said, I just like to see the ending different. But the last thing we need to say is, sadly, David Bowie, the Goblin King, did die January 10th, 2016 of liver cancer. The sad thing is, it was just 2 days after his release of his 25th studio album, Black Star, which coincided on his 69th birthday. So, R.I.P. Goblin King. So, with that being said, this episode went a little bit longer than we intended, but, once we get on a roll, we got to make sure we get everything out that we want to get out. So, Terrence, any final thoughts? Anything you want to throw out there?
I am curious. Post on rather email us or post on our the Tragedy of Cinema podcast group on Facebook. What are your thoughts on this movie? And maybe there's some messages that both me and Jimbo didn't see. That, like, hey, this is my favorite movie, and this is what it's trying to say. Highlight some of those things for me, and it might change my mind on it. But I'm gonna stand where I stand on the movie for now. But I am curious into what other people think. Maybe there's something that we missed. And in this case, I am particularly interested and curious.
All right, there you have it. If you guys haven't left us a review yet on the Apple Podcast or iTunes, go ahead and leave us there.
We do love reading those.
Yeah, we'll read them on the air like we did last episode with Clash of the Titans. Don't forget, next week will be Ghostbusters.
Yep.
Who are you going to call, Terrence?
Ghostbusters.
Well, hopefully I can call you to get over here. And I'll be like, oh, I forgot. So, with that being said, I think this episode's coming to a close, and that's a wrap. And cut.